Hello, what's up everyone? It is I am the one and only Maxi here, and I am back for the Maxi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final video for Banjo-Tooie, for the Let's Play of Banjo-Tooie for the Nintendo 64, along with the forms of the Xbox consoles ranging from, you know, Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Series S, from the Xbox Live Arcade versions. So, remember how last time we did manage to finish up with Gruntilda once and for all, and somehow we did manage to beat her at the end. So today, this is going to be the extra video for Banjo-Tooie. Even though it's not much to able to show off, apart from the fact that, well, if you try to play this game on the Xbox Live Arcade version, remember back in the forms of in the original Banjo-Kazooie game, after when you beat the main game, well, after dealing with the forms of Gruntilda for real, then you do found out that you weren't able to stumble across these stop and swap eggs from the first game. Well, originally back on the N64 days, they were supposed to be able to actually use those things during the course of the actual, like, stop and swap. They can able to trade certain items between both Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie within the forms of 2 cartridges, but due to the forms of some complications here and there, unfortunately that feature was scrapped from the N64 original version. On the other hand, on the Xbox Live Arcade version, they somehow managed to bring that feature in. So, in the original Banjo-Kazooie game, that if you try to find 6 of those colorful eggs, then you might able to actually find something a bit useful if you manage to able to actually decide to able to actually use it on Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. And, also, there's the forms of the ice key, which I'll discuss on that in a moment, because obviously the first thing we'll show off is that what if you come across into Hedgie the Hen, basically after when you're able to collect 6 of those colorful eggs, sometimes you might actually get certain rewards. Specifically, the first one we actually did put it into her nest, and that's what appears to be by the forms of the yellow egg. So, in this case, as soon as we're able to actually see her hatching the egg, basically we're able to get something very rewarding. Well, it only applies on the Xbox Live Arcade version, so in this case, in the first egg, we actually got ourselves the gamer picture. So, yeah, I believe that was actually the second game picture we actually unlocked. The first one we actually unlocked, it was actually back in the forms of Jolly Roger's Lagoon, so by collecting the forms of those little gold trinkets and stuff like that, so... But there was also quite a few stop and swap items which you can also about to obtain for the sake of the forms of the stop and swap feature as well. Or to be more specifically, stop and swap 2 items. Now, unfortunately, I don't feel like trying to able to go through every single of those stop and swap 2 items personally, because there might be, I would say, 2 of them will only be accessible within a replay mode, which I'll discuss on that in a moment. So, yeah, basically, every time whenever you're able to actually just toss the actual special eggs into the hedge, you always have to see the, oh, okay, so I somehow managed to able to get something like, oh, it's a new theme I've got. Okay, that's actually pretty cool and interesting. I might actually try to able to equip that, assuming if I was trying to able to change the forms of the Sonic's theme to Banjo-Tooie theme, which I know for the fact that, well, usually relatively speaking, I still enjoy the Sonic games, but somehow I'm going to switch it over until after I've done with this recording session, so... But even then though, for this particular extras, I'd like to discuss about the fact that, speaking of the replayability, that basically you do have 3 modes you can able to replay through. But there's also the special movie that you can able to unlock. Well, it only happens as soon as you're able to actually collect every single Jiggy throughout the game, or to be more specifically, trying to find every single Jinjos, if I'm assuming so correctly, and basically we'll get ourselves a very interesting familiar reward if you guys who ever played the original Banjo-Kazooie before, basically that we will able to actually discover the forms of the character roll call. Well, again, we'll show this off until for later, because even though unfortunately in this first part of the extra stuff feels a bit slow at points, mainly because I just wish there was actually a fast forward feature to able to actually skip the exact same animations again. But who cares anyway, because I just want to show you guys what these eggs actually contains if you manage to decide to trade these eggs from the likes of Banjo-Kazooie to Banjo-Tooie. So that's why I classified that for the sake of the forms of what kind of rewards you can get. So, but yeah, that's as far as I can say at this point. Especially noticeable how the fact that, well, again, that's as far as I can say about it. Although, much like the forms of Banjo-Kazooie on the Xbox Live Arcade versions, that's stop and swap items in the forms of, well, specifically the original game, along with Banjo-Tooie, that if you get some of the actual stop and swap 2 items, you can able to actually use them as in the forms of, well, to be more specifically, for the sake of the forms of, well, trying to transfer some of the stuff onto Nuts and Bolts game. And also, we got ourselves the unlockable character, by the way, by the forms of Jinjo himself, on the likes of multiplayer. Unfortunately, we can't show off the multiplayer stuff, I'm afraid, just because I've only have 2 controllers at the moment. Although I would like to able to actually just to go ahead and get the final 2 controllers, but unfortunately though, this is why the pricing of some of these controllers gets a lot expensive for this point right now. Although especially noticeable, it does require a lot, I mean a lot of AA batteries, for the sake of the forms of, well, to be more specifically, if you try to able to play the game wirelessly, so, well, with wireless controllers to be exact, so. And it appears to be the final reward we can get is the fact that, well, it appears to be, after we skip all the actual dialogue and stuff like that, 20th birthdays, jeez. That usually happens during the course of 2018, but unfortunately though, no new Banjo game during that time, so we got ourselves stop and swap 2 item. Now remember back in part 10, I believe there might be something in there though, which it's only accessible on the Xbox Live Arcade version, even though originally on the Nintendo 64 game. But regardless of anything else though, we'll just see what happens there if we manage to able to investigate this. So anyways, let's try to use the grenade X so that way we can deal with these guys a lot easier. So hopefully we can able to do just that. And I somehow... Did I deal with him? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I deal with him. So yeah, it should be good to go for this point. And there's the exclamation mark honeycomb thingy right there, which let's not worry about that right now, because obviously I think we are still in full health, because obviously with the health extension. Oh, what do we have here? It looks like a Banjo-Kazooie game pack. I wonder what's inside. Which basically, well, if you try to attack him, this will give us the stop and swap items, which in this case we have ourselves our first stop and swap item, in this case stop and swap 2. So yeah, remember that part that we stumbled across the forms of the Banjo-Kazooie game pack? Well, that's not the only one that we actually found, because there is actually another 2, which they're actually on the exact same world as in the forms of Spiral Mountain. So, as a result though, that every time whenever you're able to deal with the forms of Banjo-Kazooie game pack, that sometimes we're able to get some special eggs. Now, as you remember from the likes of in part 10, that of this playthrough anyway, that we somehow already had come across into the forms of the gold egg, but there was also the silver egg along with the forms of the bronze egg. So yeah, we could have to find them on specifically on some specific stuff. Although here's the thing, in order to able to actually get these you know, special like eggs and stuff like that, basically you have to learn a lot of more moves, especially with, you know, let's just say grabbing on the ledge and stuff like that, and also same applies to egg aiming for flying. So as a result though, that way you can able to actually guarantee to able to actually find your way from specifically some special routes that allows you to able to actually access to special items. So yeah, there's the next stop and swap 2 item, and this time it appears to be the silver egg. Now, if you're probably wondering, where's the bronze egg? Well, we need to head back onto the red feather pad and head into the first-person view, or specifically on this particular aiming skills there, and try to use the grenade X to able to explode the actual, well, specifically that particular rotten cage. And that way, it should lead you to the forms of the next, well, I would say this is the third and the final Banjo-Kazooie game pack. And there you go, there's the bronze egg, and there's another stop and swap 2 item. So yeah, again, in order able to actually just to use these 4, it's just for the Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts game. It doesn't matter what platforms you go into. So as a result though, something worth classified for mentioning about that specific stuff worth noting for. So I guess that's pretty much as far as I can say for the sake of time. And also, if we decided able to actually just hit on to the next extra thing, that we need to head over to the forms of the second world, which is of course Gelter, Gulcher Mine. And basically, remember the forms of also in Banjo-Kazooie on the likes of the Xbox Live Arcade release, that remember back in the day that we somehow stumbled across the forms of the Ice Key item from the likes of the forms of Freezy Peak. Well, turns out that what you can use the Ice Key for is the fact that there's also this little hidden area that can only be accessible if you're trying to learn the Kazooie's Torpedo move from the likes of the forms of Jolly Roger's Lagoon, and also on top of that is the fact that, well, basically we have to go and traverse for the actual water, as you can see, from that little stream. And also, if you manage to make your way to the... I would say, for that particular direction we're heading to, and it does apparently get very similar to the likes of one of those jiggies that we've already gotten through ever since the very beginning of this Let's Play. So, yeah, let's activate the forms of the Torpedo move for Kazooie. And all the once in a while, though, that we were able to destroy that particular Kazooie rock. And sure enough, if you manage to break it, this will pretty much allows us to actually access to this hidden area. And by the way, this will actually connect it somewhere very familiar. For those of you who are ever wondering about the fact that, well, I just have no words to say, because even then though, I have seen these before, but I've never actually done this for myself. So in this case, we ended up back in Hellfire Peaks, in the icy side. And this what appears to be almost the exact same location, as we remember, we actually saved one of the people by the forms of, you know, Mumbo Jumbo's magic. So yeah, as you can see, we actually stumbled across the actual, the Ice Key padlock, or the actual, the safe lock for the Ice Key itself. And then if you try to use it specifically in this area, well, look at that. We stumbled across this very peculiar creature. Wow, you've caught the legendary Mega Globo. It's supposed to have really super magical powers. Well, sure thing, Jar Jars, because in fact, I'll try to jump cut and I'll meet you guys there. Alright, so speaking of another jump cut, that we ended up in the forms of almost right near to Witchy World, that is when we actually stumbled across the forms of another Wumbo's tent. And as you can tell, since that we've already stumbled across the forms of this very special spell by causing the forms of trying to obtain the, you know, the Mega Globo right there, or the legendary Mega Globo. And as a result though, that particular creature is required, by the way, in order to be able to actually stumble across, I would classify for saying it technically, the final transformation in the game. However though, this is not applied to Banjo, by the way, because if we manage to able to throw this Mega Globo first, and as soon as we dive right into the actual pool, just like before, then obviously something interesting will happen, in addition to the forms of another Stop and Swap 2 item right here. So, yeah, nothing different from Banjo right there, as you can see on screen. But, on the other hand though, we have ourselves a dragon? I wonder what that could be. Oh, Kazooie's a dragon. Ah, that's interesting. Especially that, well, I'll probably will mention more about it until whenever we're able to just get out of this tent. So, and also we actually access the forms of the Lost Challenges, which it will be applies for Nuts and Bolts game. So, yeah, they mentioned about that. So, yeah, with Kazooie becoming a dragon, all that she really does is the fact that it feels like a cosmetic skin, except the fact that her voice is actually a lot different. And I'm pretty sure she also does like fire breathing as well, which I don't suppose I actually did manage to show this off, because I have no words of how to able to activate it. Let me know in the comments below, by the way, because obviously I have no idea how I'm supposed to able to do a fire flamethrower attack. But basically, it's pretty cool though to able to see that particular transformation right here. So, and the next extra thing we'll show off is the final Xbox Live Arcade, well, in this case, the final 3 achievements I might as well able to achieve from the likes of the forms of 3 specific parts. First of all, we need to head back into the forms of Witchy World for the definition of the final time, because there was one particular achievement that I somehow forgot about, and that's the forms of requiring the ridiculous amount of points to able to actually get the achievement, which I didn't do it for the first time, just because all I got is basically 58. points, but then every once in a while though, that we need to head back in there for the final time, and the reason for this, we need to aim for 60 or higher points in order to be able to get the achievement. So, but that's essentially how I was going to be doing for the sake of time right there. But there's also other 2 achievements as well, which one of them is actually based around from the forms of Jolly Roger's Lagoon, and also another one in either multiple locations, like either the forms of any kind of world with Mumbo Jumbo from the likes of the Magic Wand, or the forms of the Grunty Industries, or Pterodactyly Land. So, however though, here's the thing though, that I'll discuss on that in a second. So, as you can see on another edited jump cut right there, is the fact that, well, after when you're able to go into Jolly Roger's Lagoon, there was one particular octopi that I somehow accidentally ignored for the sake of the forms of trying to freeze any of those octopuses to able to get the next achievement. Now, we've already done 3 of them already, but there's one in particular I was missing out on, and that is this one over there. That appears to be almost right near to the forms of those specific locks field. So, yeah, that might be sure it's something worth noting for the sake of trying to find any single parts of it. Still, I kind of wish there was actually a map feature, but who cares, because we already got the achievement anyway, and plus I'll just committed suicide right there, so I'll meet you guys in the next one. Alright, for the final achievements, that you can either do multiple things. Either the Mumbo's Wand attack, which honestly I found it's kind of alright, to be able to deal with the enemy's attacks and stuff like that. However, I highly recommend you able to use the washing machine transformation in Grunty Industries, and able to actually take down 20 enemies. And if you do that, chances are that you would able to get the last achievement in the game. Or you can use the Daddy T-Rex transformation one if you prefer. So as a result though, yeah, I somehow managed to get all of the achievements of the game at long last. So, anyway, the next thing we'll show off is, although it's kind of pointless on the Xbox Live Arcade version, but more so on the forms of the N64 version. If you manage to hit back into the Mayhem Temple, as you can see, that we haven't been to since for quite a long time, and as you can see, we have that cracked little stone wall, and that's what pretty much leads us to the forms of that particular special code room. Specifically the code chamber. And basically, think of like the forms of the Treasure Trove Cove area from the likes of the Sandcastle code system. Well, think of like that, except rather than dealing with ground pounds on certain letters and all that stuff in order to activate something on the code, instead we have to aim with the actual egg aim cursor reticle, and that way you can able to activate those specific codes. But here's the catch though, you need to able to keep on typing in specifically Cheeto's real name. So in this case, like, you're gonna have to able to shoot C-H-E-A-T-N-O, and then when you activate Cheeto's name, then you can able to actually type in the actual codes representing the forms of 4 different things, or actually technically 5, or somewhat more than that, which there are the forms of feathers, eggs, foolproof, and also say applies to the jukebox feature, which obviously the jukebox allows you to able to actually activate the sound test of the game. But I'm going to demonstrate one of them anyway, and basically that if you're trying to spell egg backwards as in the forms of S-G-G-E, and that way you can get yourselves the number of amount of eggs you can actually hold up to. What the hell? Jump Jar, you trying to interrupt me? Oh, wait a second, I can't able to actually use that if I was trying to do online leaderboards, as well as the save for able to actually not save. So, yep, totally illegal by the way. So, unfortunately I can't show you guys the rest of these cheat codes sadly, so, but it's there if you want to get some distractions there for the sake of time. So, yeah, that's besides the point. So, and I suppose, speaking of such though, we'll show off the final thing for the sake of Banjo-Tooie. That is the fact that we'll hit into the replay mode, and basically if you go into the cinema mode, basically we'll stumble across the character parade, which basically represents character roll calls between any other NPC characters, including the main cast, and in addition to that, that's basically, it also includes boss characters as well. So I think of like the credit sequence that we've already seen, after dealing with the forms of the quiz trivia thing from the likes of the Quadrant Keep, except, well, as I mentioned this earlier, that it shows us every single characters of the game. So, now I'm presuming this actually lasts for about 12 or so minutes, so, but yeah, that's usually as far as I can say about this. So, And with that being said, I would like to able to show you guys of what the other 2 Stop and Swap 2 items you can also obtain, which there are, well, obviously we already got a few of them, which there are, oh no, not again, and there's also Lucky Loser that we've already got, and also better than a slap, and the winner is Stop and Swap 2 item. And there's also Charmer Chameleon, which it can able to actually just to get every single transformation at least once. And there's also other 2 Stop and Swap 2 items that you can able to obtain, but only during the course of the replay mode, such as for instance, Now Who's Boss is by defeating all the bosses in replay mode for under 15 minutes. And there's also Heroic Failure, which you can able to die 40 times while fighting bosses in replay mode. So yeah, those are the only Stop and Swap items, or Stop and Swap 2 items I've somehow ignored. But it's for bragging rights, and especially noticeable if you really want to get any other cosmetic vehicle parts or something peculiarly special for the sake of nuts and bolts game, by all means bragging rights, I suppose. So and aside from all that stuff though, aside from the forms of these cheat codes, I would like to show you, but unfortunately though, because of the forms of gem drawers trying to tell me off if I was going to activate one or not, and I was decided I'm probably not going to lose my progress for this point right here, so I do apologize for that. So, but you can able to actually obviously look it up for yourself for the sake of like other videos out there. They're pretty hilarious too. Like one of them is actually involves around, well, you know, Banjo runs fast, and also, I think that's pretty much as far as I can say for that particular hilarious cheat code there, but mostly I don't usually decide to able to use cheat codes anymore, just because I'm now a hardcore gamer after all. So yeah, I must have thought so already. So yeah, and I think, suffice to say, that's all the extra stuff of how this game offers us too, and especially noticeable, I can give my true final thoughts of Banjo-Tooie game as a result. I've already mentioned about this ever since during the course of, well, in Banjo, well, at the very end of that particular quiz trivia game, since during the course of Culture and Keep. Well, I'm gonna say this again, this is one of the greatest N64 games I've ever played. Well, along with the Xbox Live Arcade version as well, if you want to count that. So as a result though, I think you should probably still recommend getting this game, either on the Xbox various systems, or you can able to get this on the original N64 cartridge version of the game. So yeah, it's a great game all in all. It's not perfect by any means. I mean, there are a few times where I found the actual backtracking can be a bit obnoxious at points. Although, don't even get me started on Grunty Industries World though, because I think Grunty Industries World is actually my least favorite world in the game somehow. But that's besides the point for me anyway. But aside from all that stuff though, most of these worlds are really unique. Especially noticeable with Hellfire Peaks, like I mentioned earlier, because of the Fire and Ice combination world, which I will say that is the best world of the game in my opinion. And aside from that, the music still looks really dang nice, even though I don't usually remember the soundtrack as much as the first game, because, as I said, the first game's soundtrack is super nostalgic for me. And the graphics still looks really damn good, even though it does feel a little bit more rough around the edges though at points, but it still looks great though, don't get me wrong. But usually, relatively speaking, there might be some graphical errors here and there, such as for instance with the actual, I forgot to mention about the forms of the actual shadows, that's somewhat pitch black, as opposed to likely like faded shadow or something like that, unlike the original N64 version. Well, usually I haven't usually touched upon for that sake of the actual graphical identity and stuff like that, but yeah, I forget what I said. So, and the story is very dang interesting, especially noticeable, as I said this before, it's more darker than the forms of the original game, because as a result, that obviously Gruntilda wants revenge and all that stuff. So yeah, she has a vendetta against with Banjo and Kazooie, so she's really out to get them. And the gameplay is super spotless and all that stuff, or specifically top-notch, just like in the original game for sure. And of course the controls are super perfection, even though sometimes the Xbox Live Arcade version seems to throw me off at points, for the sake of the actual control stick aiming and stuff like that. But apart from those side things though, this is certainly a must-have game for the N64 or the Xbox various systems. So as a result though, yeah, I should still recommend it. So, oh jeez, that looks super devastating to be able to see how this is going. So, yeah, I guess that's pretty much as far as I can say about Banjo-Tooie. So even then though, I suppose, up next, in terms of the Banjo-Kazooie retrospective of Let's Plays, I think, relatively speaking, technically I'm not going to count Banjo Pilot, because it's more likely like a racing game, although let me know in the comments below if you want me to decide to do that game on the Game Boy Advance emulator, so I can obviously able to play Game Boy Advance games just fine on, you know, emulator and stuff like that. Or, I can able to actually do Banjo-Kazooie. Oh, wait a second, I just realized, the next Banjo-Kazooie game we might do a Let's Play on, and that's what appears to be Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge for the Game Boy Advance. Yeah, I can probably do that. Especially noticeable that I used to have the original cartridge version, which I still have, and maybe I can probably try to do it on an emulator, despite it might actually cost a bit of lagging here and there. So, but also besides the point. So, yeah, I'd like to thank you guys for watching this particular playthrough, because let me tell you, I actually really enjoyed the actual Let's Play itself, even though despite World 6, specifically Grunty Industries, can give me a bit of a troublesome at points, especially after dying quite a few times, and also the ridiculous amount of backtracking here and there. And aside from all that stuff though, that I had a really great time doing this particular Let's Play for you guys, especially, thank God, no upload delays or anything. Although there are a few exceptions, mind you, just because I was really into the forms of some new games recently. And in fact, relatively speaking, I think that one thing I should probably mention is the fact that today's day is of course the 20th of October today, in this case in 2021. And for those of you guys who lived in the UK, or specifically the Brony UK community, happy 4th anniversary of My Little Pony the Movie 2017 film that has been out for 4 years since during the course of the UK in 2017. Well, technically America did that already, so yeah, it's want to classify that. So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, and this is me, Maxi, from the likes of the Maxi Toys. And until then, as I said before, up next in terms of the films of the Banjo-Kazooie Games of Let's Plays department, up next it will be Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge for the Game Boy Advance. So, yeah, that should be fun and interesting at the very least. So, yeah, I'll let you guys enjoy this particular character parade kind of syndrome. Although, unfortunately, though, it might not contain that much commentary at the end because, honestly, there's not much else I can say. Although there's one last thing I would like to mention. We've only got 9 days left until Mario Party Superstars is about to come out on the Switch, so I'm super hyped. So, anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time soon. Later, fellas, and take care.
Hut, two.